Hi, I'm Christy Rost. Whether it's work, school, or after-school activities, life can get pretty busy these days. Add to that the cost of groceries and dining out. It's important to have an arsenal of easy-to-prepare recipes that are economical and taste fabulous. Welcome to At Home with Christy Rost. I'm starting with honey molasses chicken, and this is a good weeknight kind of meal, but it's also yummy on a weekend. So I have a saucepan here, and I'm going to add in some canola oil because I'm going to make a barbecue sauce for the chicken. And I just swirl this a little bit to coat the bottom and add in some sweet onion, nice chopped. I like to cut my onion kind of on the small side. I'm not real fond of great big pieces of onion in just about anything. So I'm just going to saute this for a few moments. It's over about medium-low heat. And I'm going to add garlic to it. So here are a few cloves of garlic. And I'll just chop these up. I'll chop it rather finely, just like I love my onion. So that would be called a dice. If you have it teeny tiny, that's called a mince. And if it's a busy night, who has time to get it to a mince? So I think a dice is enough time. Yeah, there we go. So we're going to add this in. These are already softened, so I add in the garlic. Garlic is something you want to add in and just heat up for about a minute because it tends to burn rather quickly. The aroma of this is just fabulous. And whether you've just come home from work or the kids are coming home from school and you're rustling this up, the smell alone is just going to bring everybody to the kitchen. Then I'll add in some ketchup. Very nice. And a little bit of red wine vinegar, about a tablespoon. Barbecue sauces almost always have a little bit of vinegar. It gives that little bit of bite. You know, you have the sweet, the tart, all of that going on. In this case, we'll add some other flavors to that as well. So you get a really balanced sauce. Then I'm going to add in some honey, about 2 tablespoons of honey. So this is some Little Bear honey. I'm putting in about 2 tablespoons, just like that. So again, you're going to have that sweetness from that. Also a little bit of molasses. So we're just building on flavors. And that's what makes a really great barbecue sauce, or really just about anything, because then all the different taste buds are doing different kinds of things. And they're all going, ooh, this is nice, this is the sweet part. Ooh, I like this. This is a little bit of tart or acid. And that's what makes food taste so good. Alrighty, now, a little bit of brown sugar. Again, sweetness, but on a different kind of level. And a bit of Worcestershire sauce. Just a few drops, really. And I like just a tiny bit of heat, so I'm going to add in some Tabasco sauce, just a few drops. There we go. Now, if Randy, my husband, were cooking this, he'd be still going like this. So this cooks for about 10 minutes. It's very quick. It freezes well. It keeps in the refrigerator very well, so you can make up a sauce and then come back another day and use it or defrost it, and it's ready for you. So this today will go on chicken thighs. It would be good on any kind of ribs as well, but this is really a quick weeknight kind of meal. So we're going to let this cook for about 10 minutes, and then we'll get the chicken and brush it on and pop it in the oven. The barbecue sauce is all ready. It's just simmered here for about 10 minutes. So I have chicken thighs, and I'm making a lot because whether you're having guests in or neighbors and just say, oh, come on over, we're having some chicken, or whether it's for your family. So I'm just going to season these with a little bit of Salt Seasons pink Himalayan sea salt, and some freshly ground pepper. And then I'm going to transfer these to this gorgeous roasting pan. This is Viking. Did you know that Viking makes cookware? I mean, everybody knows they make stovetops and refrigerators and ovens. I have a Viking oven at home in Dallas. But they make cookware too, and that's what I'm using this season. And this roasting pan is just incredible. So I have it at home in Dallas. So I'm going to take my chicken thighs and transfer them into the roasting pan. And already the sauce is just, I mean, it's so fragrant and so robust in flavor. It's going to make this meal, it wouldn't matter what cut of chicken you were using. Chicken legs would be really good for this, as a matter of fact. Then take the sauce and brush it on top. And be nice and generous, and see all the little pieces of onion and garlic there. That's all going to flavor the chicken. In the meantime, I preheated my oven to 350 degrees. This will bake for about 45 to 55 minutes, depending on your oven. And I don't cover it. I leave it uncovered, and it helps that all the brown sugars and the honey and all to kind of brown a little bit on the skin, so you get a really pretty color. And it makes it a little bit crispy too, and I like that. So we're almost done. So you can see how a recipe like this could make a really great meal on a busy day, because it really didn't take me very much time at all. There we go. Everybody looks good here. You've got a good coating. And if you have leftover sauce, then my suggestion is to go ahead and baste them again partway through the roasting process. When they're done, a meat thermometer should read 165 degrees for chicken. So I'm going to pop these in the oven. Dinner's almost ready. So the honey molasses chicken is ready. It took no time at all to put this dinner together. And I'm pairing it with a Michael David Winery Petite Petite. And this is a gorgeous wine, a beautiful Syrah that has lots of dark fruit on the palate when you first taste, and then it has a little bit of a dryness that comes in, and then all of a sudden burst of fruit flavor at the finish. So it is a gorgeous pairing with this chicken dinner. When we come back, I have another great weeknight meal for you. Cosmic Crisp apples are a cross between Enterprise and Honeycrisp varieties, which makes this non-GMO apple extra juicy and beautifully crisp. Sweet and naturally slow to brown, I love them for snacking, baking, cooking, salads, and charcuterie boards. I'm proud to have Cosmic Crisp as a sponsor of At Home with Christy Rost. So here's another easy and flavorful recipe for a busy night. This one is a macaroni and vegetable casserole. And you can even make it a day ahead, pop it in the fridge, and then bring it out and put it in the oven the next day. So I'm preheating my saucepan here, and I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil to this, about a tablespoon. I just swirl to coat the bottom of the pan and add in some red onion. And this is nicely diced, so not too big. Give this a good stir. And leave this for just a couple of minutes to let it soften. Then I have 3 large garlic cloves. So I'm going to chop these up. And you know, another thing you can do if you have your garlic like that, you can put your knife on the side like this and smash it. Just go like this and smash it, And that helps so you don't have to do as much chopping. And if you have a really tough day, you may want to smash it just a little more. And then just chop. So this is really a vegetarian meal, although I am using some chicken stock in this, but you could easily use vegetable stock instead. Very nice, very nice. I'm going to add this in to the onion. Get all that good garlic in there. Whoopsie. And I'm going to just stir this. I can smell that garlic already. It doesn't take very long. Then I'm going to add in some broccoli florets. And I have some other veggies as well, but these take longer to cook, so I'll put them in first. So I want to saute these until they begin to soften, and that will take about 5 minutes. So the broccoli has softened a little bit. Now I'm going to add in some zucchini. And we cut them, about a 1/2 inch thick, and then quartered them. I'll just add this in. And dump and stir recipes are just so valuable when you're talking busy weeknights. And once those are soft, then I'll add in some frozen peas. And I've thawed them, but you really don't have to. Just throw them in right from the freezer, because you're busy. You don't have time to wait. So add the frozen peas in there and stir this together. This is just full of flavor and nutrition and color, because it's got all kinds of beautiful greens in here. Whoopsie. Well, that's why it's called At Home with Christy Rost, because, oh yeah, I do that. We'll throw that back in. That might be the piece that ends up in my dinner plate. And then I have a carrot, and I'm going to shred this in rather than, slicing it or something. I'm just going to shred it in. It's going to add nice color to this. And of course, more nutrition. And the more veggies we can get into our diet, the better. And none of these vegetables are expensive. So this is a pretty economical meal. And I had already cooked some elbow macaroni, and that's pretty inexpensive too. So if you're on a budget, this is a really good meal for a weeknight. And it kind of serves a crowd, so that's good. And it holds well overnight for leftovers the next day. We all need leftovers sometimes. Ooh, pretty, pretty colors. This is what I love. Look at this, isn't that pretty? Lovely. Okay, so I am going to transfer all of this to the macaroni. Now you can really see how colorful it is. And it's got beautiful flavors and aromas going there too. Changing my pans here because I'm going to make a cheese sauce to go with this. And you thought it only came in a box. There, look at that. Woo, pretty. Okay, so we're going to make what's called a roux. And you may be familiar with a roux in terms of New Orleans cooking, especially for something like gumbo. But you also can use a roux to make other kinds of sauces. So that's what we're going to do now. I'm going to put some butter in my saucepan. I have about 2 tablespoons, 2 to 3 tablespoons of butter here. Just going to melt this, because then I'll whisk in some flour. I'm giving it a chance to melt. Then, it's almost melted. I'm going to start adding in some flour. Just a couple tablespoons is all you need. And at this point, you want to really stir, 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 because this is going to get really thick. But you have to make sure that the flour gets cooked. So rather than hurry up and put in some liquid, I'm going to actually let this cook for a few minutes. Now, if I let it cook for a long time, it would start to turn golden brown, and then it would get darker and darker. And if you wanted a really dark roux, like you were going to use in something like a gumbo, then you would want it to get all the way to a mahogany color. But generally, I would do that with some oil as opposed to butter. And this is getting foamy. It's just bubbling up. I don't know if you can see this, but I'm going to try and show that to you, how bubbly that gets. And that's when you know that this is really about ready now to add some liquid. So I have some chicken stock. If you want it vegetarian, use veggie stock. And I add a little bit at a time and stir, stir, stir. And it gets thick, and you want to pick up everything off the sides and then add more. And again, just whisk this like crazy to keep it nice and smooth. That way you don't have a lumpy sauce. And we'll add a little more. This is starting to smell really yummy. So this is one of those dishes I came up with one time. I just thought, I kind of like a macaroni and cheese, but I don't want to just have macaroni and cheese. And I thought, well, what if I start to put some fresh veggies in here and really soup it up and make it very nutritious rather than just, a carbohydrate kind of meal with a bunch of cheese. So that's how I came up with this. And I always have broccoli in the house. I always have zucchini in the house. And it just went from there. So now I'm going to add in, I have about a cup and a half of half and half. You can also use milk. And again, I'm just adding a little at a time to let the sauce get nice and thick without lumping. A little more. It's going to be good. Because you know what's going to come pretty soon. That's going to be the cheese. Also, by adding your liquid a little at a time, you're helping to maintain the temperature of this. So you're not going from a hot sauce to one that's only lukewarm and then back to hot again. By adding your liquid a little at a time, you're keeping the temperature fairly constant in the pot. And that can be helpful when you're making a sauce. And the last of the milk. Very nice. Going to up my heat just a little bit. Going to stir in a little bit of mustard. This is Dijon mustard. I have about a tablespoon here. Going to stir in some sea salt. Just enough. There we go. That's the Salt Seasons sea salt. That's a pink Himalayan. I love it. And I stir this together, make sure that I get that mustard in there. So finally, I'm going to add in some white pepper. Instead of using black pepper in this, the white pepper is going to get a nice little kick and a bit of heat in the back of your throat. And it's just, you never use a lot. You always use just a little. And I whisk this in really well until it's well mixed. And now comes the cheese. So add the cheese a little at a time, like that. You want to just stir, stir, stir until it melts. And then you'll add more cheese. And this is what's going to keep the sauce really smooth, is a little at a time. Pretty, pretty. Then I'll add some more. So this is from Carr Valley. You may remember my friends at Carr Valley from last season. They're in Wisconsin. Sauk City, Wisconsin is where I've been. And they have a plethora of gorgeous cheeses. Every year they have new cheeses for me to try. So this is the 6-year cheddar. And it's so, so lovely. Really good with appetizers and all, but boy, does it make a beautiful cheese sauce. You could also add a little bit of Fontina cheese to this if you want, and that will give it a real creaminess that you might enjoy. This is pretty. This is taking on the color of mac and cheese, but not the kind you get from the box. Now I'll add in the rest of the cheese now. Okay, if you have kids in the house, you know this is going to be a hit. They love anything that has mac and cheese. And that may be one way to get them to eat their veggies too, is this recipe. Gorgeous. I want to make sure it's nice and smooth, so I'm just going to check here. Almost. Let me whisk it for just another moment or two. And then when it's nice and smooth and creamy, Then I pour it over the macaroni. That'll do it. Beautiful, beautiful sauce. It's silky, it really is. Let's see if I can, look how silky this is. Isn't that pretty? Okay, then I pour it over the veggies and macaroni. And stir this through. And the macaroni is cooked to almost al dente, not quite al dente, because it's going to go in the oven and it's going to bake. And so you don't want to have it mushy. And so look at your package directions as to how long to cook macaroni. Depending on the size of the macaronis, will depend on how long it will take to cook. It also makes a difference if you're at high altitude like I am. I'm at 9,300 foot elevation. If you're down in New Orleans making that roux, then your macaroni is going to cook faster than mine. Okay, so this is ready, and I'm going to transfer this to this beautiful casserole dish. And this is by Peugeot Saveur. I will transfer it there. And I've already preheated the oven. You can bake this at 350 or 375, depends on how much you've got going on that day, how quickly you need it. And just move this around a little bit. Now you can put extra cheese on top if you like, but I have to admit, I like being able to see all the veggies. And so if I put cheese on that, then it looks like any other casserole. So here you go. This is the macaroni and vegetable casserole. On a busy weeknight, a macaroni and veggie casserole. How about a gorgeous Michael David Sauvignon Blanc with vibrant notes of apricot lemon zest. And so you've got the creamy sauce here, and you have a wine that is crisp and refreshing, and that's what makes it a beautiful pairing. Cheers.
It was one of those peak moments in life.
The olive oil and caviar tasting was life-changing.
Our guests can go ashore and immerse themselves in some of these little out-of-the-way places.
Atlas spoiled us.
Yeah, they did.
Coconut raisin chewies. These are one of my husband Randy's absolute favorite cookies. And if you have a batch of these in the oven when kids come home from school, oh my gosh, they're gonna make a beeline to the kitchen. So I have a cup of unsalted butter here in the mixer, and I'm going to add in some granulated sugar. And you know, you can get all of my recipes on my website at christyrost.com. And I always add my sugar kind of gradually. Then I'm going to add in some brown sugar. This is going to kind of give a little caramelized kind of flavor to these cookies, kind of like you get in a chocolate chip cookie. So I add in brown sugar. Now when you measure your brown sugar, always pack it really well, pack it tightly into the cup or the tablespoon, however the amount you need for a recipe. So I mix this, and you want to let it mix for several minutes until it gets really light and fluffy. Then I'm going to add in 2 eggs, and I add them one at a time. And you mix the one really well before you add the second. Baking cookies is always just a relaxing thing for me. I know every time I bake cookies, it brings smiles to people's faces. And I always have them on hand for when I have deliveries expected, or the guys are coming to cut the lawn or whatever. I love running out with a little bag of treats for them. So having cookies on hand is really kind of fun. There goes the other egg. And at this time, I'm going to stop the mixture. I'm going to step over and grab a spatula, and I'm going to just take all that butter that's around the outside of the bowl here and bring it down into the center so that it really gets well mixed in with the eggs. Don't you just love my cute spatula? It goes with my outfit. That's why I chose it. That's from Tavolo. Love it. I love things that I can coordinate the colors in case you haven't noticed that. Then I'll add in a little bit of vanilla, about a teaspoon. Sometimes at high altitude, you need to add a little extra flavoring. So sometimes for a cookie recipe, I'll need to add in about a teaspoon and a half or even 2 teaspoons when the recipe calls for 1. That's because flavors get kind of bland when you bake, not when you're cooking at high altitude, but when you bake. And so if you're at an elevation of 5,000 feet or higher, you may find that you can't quite capture the flavor you really wanted that you remember from a recipe from the past. And then you realize, oh, if I added a little more vanilla or a little more almond extract or something, it will take care of that. So I have some flour here, and I'm going to add in 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. This is yet another tip for high altitude baking. If you live at low altitude, you aren't going to need this in the recipe. I guess that's the best way to say it. Then I have a teaspoon of baking powder and a little bit of baking soda and a little bit of sea salt. This is the Himalayan sea salt. This is well mixed. It's super light and fluffy. I'm going to mix this together with my spoon. Some people like to do it with a whisk. That works very well, but you know, I'm in a rut. I always use a spoon. And then I'm going to stir the flour mixture into the butter and sugar mixture, but I'm going to do it by hand. So we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to transfer this to a clear bowl so you can see it, and we'll finish out making the cookies. So I'm stirring the flour mixture into the butter mixture here. And I already started, I got a head start on it for you. And, so I'll just finish stirring this in. And I have oatmeal and coconut and raisins. So this is gonna have, that's why they're called chewies. There's lots going on when you bite into these cookies. And they really have a nice caramelization kind of flavor to them. It's just really yummy. No wonder Randy loves them so much, but I do too. All right, and you want to get it really well incorporated. So when it sticks to the spoon, use a spatula to get it off. And of course, this one goes with my outfit. Alrighty, now I can put in my oatmeal and the coconut. Randy loves anything with coconut. Sometimes when I talk about making a recipe, I'm creating a recipe for this or that, and he'll say, does it have coconut? I go, no, honey, this one doesn't have coconut. And raisins. And I really prefer to mix my cookie doughs with a spoon, a large spoon, rather than the mixer. Most people, I think, still use a mixer for that, but I find that the cookies are lighter in texture. And something I wanted to mention earlier, why I use the cornstarch. Up here at this altitude, I find that cookies that have a lot of butter tend to collapse in the oven. They get really puffy, and then all of a sudden they're almost like paper thin. And I have discovered after many years of trial that adding some cornstarch helps solve that problem. And then the texture of the cookie is nice and soft, and yet it has a little bit of almost a shortbread texture to it. So then I have a greased cookie sheet here, and I'll just bring that over. And I use 2 spoons and form my cookie dough into rounds. And I tried it both ways. I tried flattening the cookie a little bit and baking it, and just doing it with the teaspoon drop. And I have found that I like the cookie better without messing with it. So I'm just going to bake these in the oven just like this. They spread a fair amount, and then when they come out of the oven, I sprinkle them with sugar. So they're going to bake at 350 High altitude, middle of the oven. The upper racks do not work. Let me see how long. We're gonna bake these for 10 to 11 minutes. So I'll just finish these up, and after they come out of the oven, I'll sprinkle them with a little bit of granulated sugar, and then watch the smiles begin. Coconut raisin chewies. What a great ending to a busy day. Thanks so much for joining me today on At Home with Christy Rost, where great food, beautiful wines, and hospitality are a tradition. I'd love to hear from you, so please connect with me on my Instagram and Facebook pages. You'll find today's recipes on my ChristyRost.com website. And I'd also like to thank our sponsors: Atlas Ocean Voyages, Cosmic Crisp Apples, Michael David Winery, Tovolo, Viking Culinary Cookware, Little Bear Honey, Salt Seasons, and Tip Tech. See you next time.